When the remains of Cyrus Grissom were committed to the depths of the Pacific, mankind thought they had seen the last of the virus. But it seems that every dog has his day. After being reanimated by his legions of robotic canines, Diamond Dog sought retribution. By resurrecting his old friend, Cyrus the Virus, the two master criminals could finally exact revenge on their ultimate adversaries, the land dwellers known as Vince Larkin and Cameron Poe. However, before they could conquer their enemies on the land, they built an underground fortress, much to the chagrin of the native Atlanteans. By nature, the merpeople who inhabited this bountiful region were peaceful, never wanting for war. In 1,000 generations of prosperity, they had known only peace and the familial bonds of brotherhood. Tragically, the virus spread. Recognizing the naivete of the Atlantean people, Cyrus deliberately sowed division among their ranks. Using Diamond Dog's canines to distribute various pamphlets and ephemera laden with the racist and oppressive diatribes of a madman. But, like many men of ambition, his words of dissension took root. Even at the bottom of the ocean's floor, the seeds of deception threatened to tear an innocent people's sovereignty asunder. In a desperate attempt to secure peace, the old Atlantean king Qiloa organized a trap for the virus, spurred on by his only daughter, the beautiful Princess Qilani. Heading the vanguard for this unprecedented war party was the bravest of the young Atlanteans, a leatherback named Longneck. As a member of the lowest class of their hierarchical society, Longneck knew that offering his life was the only way to secure a future that had been denied to him by his birthright. While Cyrus and the K9s possessed the advantage in numbers, they had doubted the Atlanteans' capacity for treachery. Their offer for peace had been a cunning ploy, an undeniable gambit that even the virus could seldom resist. But when he was betrayed by the Atlantean war party, Cyrus and Diamond Dog swore revenge upon the peaceful people, further sowing division among their ranks. Upon returning to the Atlantean capital, Longneck presented the two prisoners as a gift to the king, Qiloa. But the leatherback was betrayed by the old monarch. The fortune and title he was promised were denied to him, and after making every modest attempt to persuade the king, the leatherback grew angry and cursed him as a despot. Qiloa banished the leatherback from Atlantis, sending him to die in exile. The king's brave plot was successful, but the loyalty of his people began to wane. The common folk, who once loved him best, now started to despise him. The seeds of revolution, it seemed, had already been planted, and the war beneath the surface was threatening what little peace still remained above. In an attempt to keep the peace, the most innovative mind in the history of prison transport, Vince Larkin made haste toward the Atlantean capital. However, after being confused by the palace guard for a member of Cyrus's entourage, the peacemaker was taken captive in the royal palace. At first, Vince Larkin was hostile towards the Atlanteans, who he felt had no jurisdiction to prosecute him under the law. However, he was soon informed that Atlantean jurisprudence superseded any terrestrial rights he may have enjoyed on land and was held as a prisoner in perpetuity. While a captive, the inquisitive Larkin began to observe the nuances of Atlantean culture from within, adopting some of their customs himself, even learning their language and the ways of their archaic religion. Soon, the amicable Larkin was given permission to roam the castle grounds under strict surveillance by the royal guard. The curious outsider began to attract attention at court, even crossing paths with the young princess, Qilani. The young princess found him brutish at first, but was soon taken by his stoicism and commitment to duty. Neither of them had any intention of falling in love, but, as fate would have it, the star-crossed lovers were soon embroiled in a forbidden love affair. When the king discovered their cursed relationship, he banned Vince Larkin back to the surface. However, after a routine prisoner transport involving Cyrus the Virus led to the death of Keelani, a distraught Vince Larkin refused the king's order. Vince Larkin had no wishes to return to the surface, fearing for the sake of the remaining Atlanteans and their grieving king. Seeing no other way to safely transport Cyrus Grissom back to the surface, Vince Larkin enlisted the help of his old friend, Cameron Poe. However, before word of Poe's arrival, Vince Larkin began experimenting with dressing in mermaid drag. The obsession began slow at first, self-imposed defense mechanisms predicated by the bereavement for his recently departed lover, the beautiful Keelani. At first, Vince Larkin only wore fake scales out of support for the Atlantean people and their desires for a more rigorously defined penal code. But soon, however, his advocacy became an addiction. Within a fortnight, he was wearing a fish scale vest like he was some sort of magician and skin-tight mermaid pants that he bought at Hot Topic. It wasn't long before he was wearing a full-length fish jumpsuit and urinating out of an artificial cloaca. The delusional old heartthrob had lost his mind. He dreamed of being a hot young mermaid, but he couldn't accept the fact that he was merely a disheveled old man with a dad bod. The harsh criticism about his figure only intensified his proclamations and commitment to the Atlantean people. It was in this moment that Vince Larkin began to experiment with molecular augmentation. By fusing his own DNA with the seminal fluid of an adolescent starfish, Vince Larkin began to change. Slowly at first, then more gradually, until there was nothing left of the man Vince Larkin. All that remained was loyalty, although the transformation nearly killed him. On the first harvest moon, when a manfish grows their new cloaca, an Atlantean tradition known as Shu-Shu-La, the human hybrid nearly died as he was stripped of his human flesh. Born anew, untainted, in the eyes of Zabok, the Atlanteans' monotheistic deity, the manta ray with the legs of an arachnid, known colloquially as the bringer of tides and the keeper of krill, when the king, Keeloa, saw Vince Larkin's sacrifice, he wept for the soul of his departed daughter, realizing for the first time that the land-dweller's heart was true. He cried in anguish, echoing his lamentations for 1,000 leagues, "My daughter's life has been forsaken. Now she walks forever in the great kelp fields, never to find her true love. May Zabok hold her against his breast. May he comfort her." Vince Larkin was moved by the affirmations of his surrogate father-in-law. The two formed a bond, determined to bring peace to the people of Atlantis. And desperate to finally rid this peaceful people of their burden, Cyrus the Virus. Vince Larkin informed the king that Cameron Poe was joining their fight against Grissom. The king's excitement was plain to see, but as much as the old king respected Nicolas Cage, there was great fear that his haircut would inspire division amongst the masses. Poe was from Alabama, and he served in the military during the 90s, so it was almost without question that he was a closet racist. Poe, who was now culturally appropriating dreadlocks, joined Vince Larkin, the man-fish, in Atlantis, where they began preliminary preparations for recreating the greatest prisoner transport vehicle in history, the Jailbird. This time, however, they weren't flying. The concept of submarine prisoner transport had never been considered logistically viable until Vince Larkin had honed the powers of Atlantean engineering. After rediscovering the lost arts forbidden by generations of censure and dogmatic infighting, Vince Larkin had begun a new era of Atlantean prosperity. The native Atlanteans began to call him Klu-Kan-Sa, or Great Rider of the Eel. The newly designed Jailbird would have been the most perfect prisoner transport ever constructed, had it not been for the treachery of a single dejected Atlantean known as Long Neck. After surreptitiously returning from exile, the clandestine young Atlantean had vowed revenge on the old monarch. A true believer of the old ways, Longneck considered the king to be an old fool and his hybrid friend an abomination not worthy of life itself, let alone to sit upon the high council. It was in this treachery that Longneck went from sedition to saboteur. The malcontent and exile had become a bona fide revolutionary, hell-bent on the prospects of anarchy. Now, there was no turning back. On the eve of Cyrus Grisham's fateful prisoner transport, Longneck snuck onto the vessel with the intention of sabotaging the jailbird, exploiting one of the only flaws in its near-perfect design. However, Longneck's criminal behavior hadn't gone unnoticed. On the surface, DEA agent Duncan Malloy had intercepted secret information revealing the whereabouts of counterinsurgency groups such as the Leatherbacks. Being the sole purveyor of this information, Malloy had to overcome his fear of swimming and journey 40,000 leagues to the depths of Atlantis before it was too late. As he raced from the surface to the deepest fathoms of the ocean floor, he knew that the fate of the world rested in his hands. Will Duncan Malloy be able to reach the Atlanteans in time? Will Cameron Poe ever get a haircut? Will Vince Larkin ever learn to pee out of his new cloaca? What happened to the Diamond Dog? And
why couldn't you put the bunny back in the box?
Con Air 2: Submergence, starring Nicolas Cage, John Cusack, John Malkovich, Steve Buscemi, Monica Potter, Danny Trejo, Ving Rhames, Dave Chappelle, Cole Meany, Mykelti Williamson as Baby O, with Idris Elba, Megan Thee Stallion, 50 Cent, and Sabrina Carpenter as the Bunny.